Hey everybody, Craig Cottle, Director of Nature Lion School, coming to you today to talk about one of my most favorite subjects in the world, and that is deer hunting and how to get started. What I wanted to do was cover some of the basics of how you can become a lawful and successful deer hunter, so thanks for joining us. First thing you need to do is check with your Fish and Wildlife Agency where you live and know what the laws are. And there's usually programs to help hunters get started. So check into that. Very incredibly valuable resources there. Number two, and this is why we've got this big, huge, expansive shot here, is you've got to go where the deer are. Once you have a place that you know that there's some deer in the area, you can do that by learning how to read tracks. A lot of people see a field like this and think, hey, I'm gonna get in the middle of the field because I can see a lot of deer, I can get on the edge. Or they go deep into the woods, and quite frankly, deer like edge habitat very well. So they'll be on the edge of the woods. They won't be in the middle of the field, and oftentimes they won't be in the deep dark woods unless that's all they have available for you. And the reason I showed this shot is because there's a field here and there's a field on the other side of these woods behind me that you cannot see. The reason this is so valuable is deer like to feed in this field and they like to feed in that field. But where they like to congregate is in this area right behind me between the two fields, because it's a travel corridor for them in a place where they're more comfortable to go and not be seen. So what I want to go into next is some of the more specific things you can do to have great success while you're deer hunting. What you're looking at right here is an open field. And the reason I'm panning in this direction is so that you can see what the edge habitat looks like coming up to this field. Now deer like to do this. They like to come into an area like this, and they're nocturnal. So they'll come into this field at night and they'll get some of the small grasses and things that are more palatable to them. Now that doesn't mean they don't forage and browse, meaning they don't get opportunistic feeding in the environment that they're in. But because there's so many grasses available that they might like in this field, they'll come to this area, but they'll hang out here. They'll congregate in an area like this before they go into the field. So this sort of area is where it's really good to start looking for deer sign, deer tracks, deer droppings, and stuff of that nature. The reason why that's so important is because if you find out where the droppings are around the edge of a habitat, then you know more than likely, because they're creatures of habit, where they're coming into that field. If you know that, then that's where you can either set up your stalk, set up your blind, set up your tree stand, or whatever it might be that you intend on utilizing to harvest your deer. Again, a lot of large shots here to try to take in the whole environment a little bit better so you can understand what I'm saying. I know it seems simplistic, but what we're looking at here is a deer barricade. Not saying that a deer can't walk over this or won't easily cross it or jump over it. But what I do know from a lot of time in the woods is that if there is some sort of barrier like this, whether it's a lot of greenbrier or even black briar, big trees that have fallen down or something, deer will regularly come up to this and walk around it. Again, if you're looking at thousands and thousands of acres, if you can find something like this, it helps narrow down where the deer are moving. The other part of this that I wanted to show you this shot is I know this is on the road, but something like this where there's a lot of mud in an area where there's a lot of grass and leaf litter gives you an opportunity to, what we as trackers call, find a track trap. This is an area where it's easy to see tracks. There's several tracks here. And what this affords me the ability to do is, again, find that line of travel. That's very important to anybody that wants to deer hunt, is know, hey, they're going this direction when they come in, and somewhere else they're going a different direction when they go out. Again, this gives you the opportunity to know where it is you're supposed to set up so that you have better opportunistic timing so that you can get an adequate and safe shot on a deer. Last, and certainly not least, you need to get in the company of other hunters. Fortunately for many of us, we grow up in a family that we learn in hunting, but one of my best friends, matter of fact, the gentleman that owns this farm here, his family didn't hunt, and I taught him how to hunt. Now he's probably a better hunter than I am at this point. But getting in the company of other hunters so they can help you learn the ins and outs of hunting. They can take you out, show you deer tracks. They can take you out, show you areas where deer like to go. But here's some things I want to throw at you for those that are trying to go in at this on your own. I can't applaud you enough. Hunting is a very valuable skill to have, and it provides you and whoever you live with organic meat source, which is fantastic. Deer are no different than you and I. They like to have shelter, they have to have water, and they have to have food. So each day, deer are going to travel corridors to go and get their bedding and food sources and water. Okay? Their bedding are in places where they feel secure, so that if a predator comes by, that includes humans, they can run away. And they'll often travel to and from a water source, and along the way to that water source, they're going to browse and forage for food. So if you know the behavior patterns of deer, and you do that by learning these corridors, you do this by learning their habits day and night, and if you can find a bedding site, then you know that you can set up, if you want to set the tree stand up, which is what I recommend for beginners. You set up a tree stand, and that way you get in a tree stand and you know the deer in the area, you don't move around a lot, you sit still. And in that manner, you can see more deer, see how they behave, and learn patterns that you need to learn to become a better hunter. So if you're a stalker, which again, I highly recommend that as well, but that's probably more of an advanced skill set where you have to walk through the woods. But let me give you a couple pieces of advice. If you're on the ground and you come up, it should take you about 60 seconds to get up. That's 60 seconds to get up off the ground. If you're walking, you shouldn't just regularly walk through the woods because that's way too much movement. The way I recommend people move is that they move in such a pace like I'm moving right now, like I'm in molasses. Maybe that's even a little bit too fast. I pour my weight into one foot, bring it up, and then pour my weight into the next foot. In that manner, I move slowly and deliberately. I'll take 2, 3 steps like that, maybe 4 or 5, and then stop and look. And when I look, I don't look like this. I look like this. I look out of the corner of my eyes. And that way I'm not making any movement, because movement is the key. I'm sure we'll come back to this subject again, but until then, keep on thinking about the weapons that you want to choose. We'll talk about that in another video, as well as camouflaging and your scent and all the things that go along with deer hunting. Because always with Nature Blind School, we want to come on, join in, let's learn together.